So here's round 33. This is a somewhat interesting round in the game.
I do see a variety of POVs right off the bat, actually. There's a lot of color. That's a good sign that we're seeing a number of different teams attempting POVs, at least.
Yeah, so let's talk about POVs a little bit. We mentioned that there's type 1 and type 2 POV. The type 1 POV is the first step of code execution. You have to crash a program in a controlled manner with user-controlled data in EIP and one other general-purpose register. And then you have the type 2, which is the memory leak. We have the infrastructure loads a page of memory and fills it with random but pre-known data, and then the attacker has to get that data out somehow. Now, it could be a traditional memory leak, or they could actually use code execution to read that memory and have it transmitted back out over the wire. Why would you go through all that trouble if you already can just crash and get execution?
Well, it's a lot harder to detect a memory leak or getting code execution, exfiltrating data. That's much more difficult for an automated analysis system to pick out. Now, it is a little bit easier in the sense that it's at a fixed location. The magic page doesn't move around. So if they have an analysis engine, like I mentioned earlier, when you've got QEMU and you might be able to tag that data and do some kind of data flow on it, it might make it easier. But that's again why some of these competitors made analysis difficult in their binaries, so their competitors wouldn't be able to put them in their analysis frameworks. But presumably teams could instrument their own binaries, run all of the POVs, network data through them, polls through them, and try to figure out which ones it can get to the magic page. Reliably doing that is an important part of the game, because then you can know when you need to defend yourself if you're actually being successfully POV'd, and then you might also be able to turn it around. Sometimes the best team is not the one that finds the exploit, but that can quickly reappropriate it.
So I want to take a look at this POV here by Galactica, and we have a video of the filament. So here's this POV just being thrown against the reference binary. This is everybody's running the service when it comes up. This one is pretty interesting from Galactica because they actually construct a ROP payload.
Okay, nice. So a ROP payload, of course, return-oriented programming, right? So it started with ret to libc, but the idea is that instead of running your shellcode, you're just reusing snippets of code that are in the existing binary. It's the classic way around protections like NX, which won't let you run data. It properly separates code and data. So instead, you use your data to point on the stack to different values in the original code segment, and then kind of reuse that code.
Okay, so what I like about this POV here from Galactica is they actually, they went and found a couple of different ROP gadgets in the code. They had to readjust the stack, then they dropped into transmit with the flag page data already, on the stack. And we see here that in fact this POV was a type 2. We can tell by this little flag icon it was a type 2 and was successful. And then we also see that the binary exited cleanly. So after they did the transmit, they also cleaned it up. They put the exit in their ROP chain. They put an exit syscall.
And if you're writing an exploit payload, like cleanup is actually kind of one of the challenges. Sometimes you can create an exploit, but you can't exit cleanly afterwards, or you can't reliably resume execution. So that's actually kind of a human skill that's fairly difficult, and not all exploit writers will even bother to do.
So the question I have then is, was this somehow pre-canned? Did they already have it set up? And I have the answer to that here, because we have a different version of this POV. This is the same challenge they're throwing against, but if you look up here, you can tell this is Xandra's replacement binary.
Okay.
So this is not the original binary. This is another team, CRS, has replaced it with this one. And what we see happening here is Galactica, they still succeeded, okay? They modified this POV. It's still using a ROP payload. They succeeded. They had to adjust that stack offset. This time, they didn't clean it up. So you can see that they didn't go through with the with putting the extra gadget on the end of that. I don't know why.
Maybe they didn't have room?
Obviously, yeah, it's been dynamically generated, so for whatever reason.
And so to be clear, it's the same POV. So the same binary, the CRS generated the binary, submits a POV, and that POV is able to calculate based on what it needs to, the proper offsets, and it's still able to succeed even in the face of a different target.
So let's talk about Galactica. Galactica was written by the team Codejitsu. Codejitsu is made up of a bunch of academic researchers. So some from the University of California, Berkeley, some from Syracuse, University, and they came together and built this CRS.
Yeah, and they've got a mix of CTF players. I, of course, always like to highlight who's got, folks on the CTF scene. A number of their team members were part of CTF team. And also Dawn Song is one of the kind of predominant researchers in the field. I think if you look at sort of a majority of the relevant literature in automated exploitation, automated patch generation, a lot of these things are things that her and Dr. Brumley as well have had their fingers in. So she's, it's not at all surprising to see her involved in a team that's developing and fielding these technologies.
We combine static analysis, dynamic analysis, symbolic execution, and we combine fuzzing, smart fuzzing, all these different approaches. They really help each other. They can help us to extract intelligence from the program binaries in different aspects, in different angles, and then we combine all this information, all this intelligence, then use it to help us to find vulnerabilities in the binaries as well as harden the binaries to make it secure against the attacks. So it's really about how we can combine all these different techniques. In the past, we all have done actually research in each individual area, and this actually is one of the first times where we really combine all these different techniques, bring them together to get, you can say the sum is greater than, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.